When you save on auto insurance for driving safe with USAA Safe Pilot, you'll feel like a big deal, even in a traffic jam. Save up to 30% with USAA Safe Pilot. Restrictions apply.
On today's Smart 7, Jeremy Hunt cuts taxes, the 4-day pause is delayed in Gaza, and lots more. It's Thursday, 23rd of November, it's Thanksgiving, and happy birthday, Miley Cyrus.
The Smart 7. It's news, but not the news.
Chancellor Jeremy Hunt delivered some of the promised tax cuts in Wednesday's autumn statement, reducing national insurance and adding money into the state pension pot. With an improving economic environment, it looked like a mini-budget with an eye on an early election. He also raised the living wage as promised and increased the local housing allowance. There were a number of measures targeted at businesses, including tax reform for the self-employed and new rules to offset capital investments.
In the face of global challenges, we've halved inflation, reduced our debt and grown our economy. As a country, we're sticking to a plan that's working, and this autumn statement for growth will attract £20 billion additional business investment a year in the next decade.
The overall tax burden remains high, and the business-focused tax cuts will be fuelled by a new squeeze on public service spending. The Office for Budget Responsibility says growth will remain slow and inflation will stay above the Bank of England target in 2024. Labour's Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves says working people are still worse off after 13 years of Tory rule.
Our country cannot afford 5 more years of the Conservatives. Mr. Speaker, the Ravens are leaving the tower when even Saatchi and Saatchi are saying the Tories are not working.
A proposed 4-day ceasefire in Gaza has been delayed until Friday. The humanitarian pause was expected to begin on Thursday, but it appears the agreement has not been fully signed. It will see dozens of hostages being released and exchanged for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was making it very clear, though, in a press conference on Wednesday evening that the war is not over and it will continue until Israel has achieved complete victory and eliminated Hamas. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak welcomed the news of the deal to release up to 50 hostages, including women and children.
This is something that we have consistently pushed for and is a crucial step towards ending the nightmare for families of those taken hostage in Hamas's terror attack and also addressing the humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
The pause will allow up to 300 trucks filled with food, fuel and aid to enter Gaza, but Israeli government spokesman Ayalon Levy says once the 4 days are up and the first group of hostages are freed, Israel is ready to resume hostilities.
Indeed, we're not talking about a ceasefire, we're talking about a temporary cessation, and once that is over, we have agreed to an additional 1-day pause for every 10 hostages they release, and if they do not want to release more hostages, we will continue.
Finland announced on Wednesday that it is to shut 3 border crossings with Russia after accusing Moscow of pushing a flood of asylum seekers through the border. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Zelensky was warning that bitter winter cold is starting to affect offensive operations on the Eastern Front, but that his troops continue to make progress in the south. Russian President Putin spoke by Zoom at a virtual G20 meeting on Wednesday and took a slightly different tone on Russia's war with Ukraine, saying that Russia is ready for peace talks, but that Kyiv has shown no interest. He also spoke about the war and put it into a global context that was unusual for the Russian leader.
I understand that this war and loss of life are shocking. But is the coup in Ukraine in 2014 not shocking? The war of the Kyiv regime against their own people in Donbas, is that shocking? Or the deaths of children in Gaza, is that not shocking?
The COVID inquiry continued its examination of the medical and scientific experts at the centre of the pandemic on Wednesday. They wrapped up testimony from the Chief Scientific Officer for England, Chris Whitty, and also interviewed former Deputy Chief Medical Officer Jonathan Van Tam. He testified that he and others had received explicit death threats from people who were enraged by the lockdowns, and at one point he and his family were advised to leave their home. Chris Whitty was also asked about the Great Barrington Declaration, which he described as another way to propose herd immunity, which simply wouldn't have worked in practice.
I thought it was flawed at multiple levels. I considered the idea you could properly shield all the right people or identify all the right people. And just to take the case of Mr. Johnson, the Prime Minister, he got very severe COVID. He's an example of the kind of person who you would not have been able to identify. So the idea that this was a sensible proposition struck me as zero, actually.
Still to come on today's Smart 7, Ireland's manager gets the boot and Top Gear needs a reboot. Right after this.
Taking charge of your future starts with taking the first steps. And saving up to $30 a month on Cox Internet with the Affordable Connectivity Program makes those steps easy to take. Whether they bring you to click upload on your first short film or join now for an online book club. Applying is easy. See if you qualify at cox.com/ACP. Non-transferable one per household. Application and eligibility decisions are made by the FCC.
Welcome back.
As the Euro 2024 qualifiers wrap up, England and Scotland are headed to next summer's tournament. Wales have secured themselves a playoff spot, but things didn't go as well for the Republic of Ireland. They were in a so-called group of death that saw France, the Netherlands and Greece battle it out for top spots. But manager Stephen Kenny only managed 2 wins against bottom side Gibraltar, and the Football Association of Ireland declined to renew his contract on Wednesday evening. Speaking after Ireland's friendly against New Zealand, he sounded like he was expecting the bad news.
Sport is ruthless and people get impatient, and I understand that because you want to qualify for tournaments, and I wanted to qualify. We all want to qualify.
Top Gear first hit the road in 1977, and there have been 34 series of the motoring show since then. It's had various hosts, including the most successful trio, Jeremy Clarkson, Richard Hammond and James May, who quit and joined Amazon Prime back in 2015. There was a brief period where Chris Evans and Matt LeBlanc hosted, and the most recent hosts were Paddy McGuinness and Freddie Flintoff. Freddie suffered a serious crash last year, which has now led the BBC to officially rest the format. Former host James May says, like any 1970s car, it probably needs a bit of work.
It does need a bit of a rethink. It's time for a new format and a new approach to the subject, because the subject has not been this interesting, I suspect, since the car was invented. It would be a shame if an organisation like the BBC didn't have something to say about it.
There's a slightly weird new movie on the way. It's a black comedy called Poor Things, and it stars Emma Stone. She plays Bella, a Victorian girl who gets resurrected after an untimely death and then sets out on a slightly bonkers journey of self-discovery. It's from the writer of The Favourite, and it also stars Mark Ruffalo and Willem Dafoe. It hits cinemas in January.
I seek outings and adventures. Bella's so much to discover.
You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
I am finding being alive fascinating.
Bella.
Why I keep it in my mouth if it is revolting? I must go punch that baby.
You've been listening to The Smart 7. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Hit that follow button and have a great day. Give us 7 minutes and we'll give you the world.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Indochino. When it comes to personal style, it's not just about a signature look. You can build your style piece by piece. With new colors, fabrics, and styles, it's the perfect time to add new layers with Indochino. From classic suits to stylish outerwear, get made-to-measure quality at an off-the-rack price. Add fresh layers to your fall style with Indochino. Go to Indochino.com and use code PODCAST to get 10% off any purchase $3.99 or more.
Taking charge of your future starts with taking the first steps. And saving up to $30 a month on Cox Internet with the Affordable Connectivity Program makes those steps easy to take. Whether they bring you to click upload on your first short film or join now for an online book club. Applying is easy. See if you qualify at cox.com/ACP. Non-transferable one per household. Application and eligibility decisions are made by the FCC.